You heard it.
Yeah, right.
How do you get to existing school teachers to shift to Montessori with computers? How do you get to?
It's a lot of sitting down with them to get that one idea in everybody's head.
Well, you get them the materials, and you sit them down, and you give them a class where they, in fact, are the kids. I used to run, when I started to develop this stuff, I ran a school within a school. The principals were the teachers in the summer, the same kids that the teachers were teaching, only we videotaped them, and I had them do team teaching, and I had them do clinical supervision, and I had them learning the theory behind what we were doing.
This is 1967 video. This
So
is amazing.
you do that. And during the summer in 4 weeks. And the proof was Harvard, Dr. Anderson from Harvard came to examine the summer program in January. I didn't know he would be hired to do that. But the superintendent of schools in Hartford hired him. And what we found was the principals that went to that summer and went through that experience were talking about the things they were doing and trying to do in their schools. The principals who didn't go through that summer program, all they kept talking about was why they can't do what they want to do.
You were creating agents of change.
Exactly, exactly. So once they understood it, and by the way, these kids were the same kids from the inner city. So I didn't import kids. They were the 4th and 5th graders from the inner city. So it worked.
So your model would be you take existing school that's failing and you get the
Right.
teachers to experience.
But I also
it's
want the
like.
principals experiencing.
Okay, right.
I want the principal to go through it. So when they're talking to their teachers, they're talking from a 4-week experience, under supervision, under television, and under their peers. Because I was tired of hearing that these kids are misbehaving and doing all this other crap. They were misbehaving because they weren't able to learn the way we were teaching them.
Would you be able to put on your ASF Solutions hat, like you're the consultant? And he has a very interesting prototype. You know, you're working on the school, right?
I'm setting up I'm working on setting up a school in the Bahamas, and the school is it's an intensive English program. Let me start back. The model within my industry, I work in an industry called the language travel industry. And it originally started in the 1920s, and it was the idea that somebody was going on a tour someplace, and they were going to go stay in, I guess, Paris for a month, and they said, oh, I want to take French lessons, and the travel agent would make some phone calls and arrange these classes. And over time, a subgenre of the travel industry developed, and it's language travel, where these schools developed. So all around the country now, in destination locations, Miami, New York, Boston, San Francisco, LA, whatever, and now even in Chicago and other areas, you have these language travel schools. What they've done is they've expanded out over time, and now they include TOEFL prep, TOEIC prep, and
So you stay longer than just for travel.
so they started, and then they moved into this university prep kind of area, and they started competing against local universities. At first, universities didn't want to have their own intensive English program, so these schools kind of filled that spot. Universities caught on later and had their own intensive language program. NOVA does not have its own intensive language program. Nova outsources to a company called Talk. But so there's this industry out there. It's within Europe alone, it's a $4.8 billion industry. It's the industry that's looking to expand the most. They're looking at a 10% growth each year. My business model is to take the destination part of it, put a school in the Bahamas, have a school that on a single campus you combined living, eating, and learning. And so you're immersed in an English language environment for 16 to 17 hours a day. And even while you're sleeping in group housing where you're sleeping with other individuals who don't speak your language and sleeping with camp counselors, so to speak, so you're forced to speak English within the setting. And from this,
it's an immersion process.
It's a true immersion process, which most schools claim to have an immersion process, but most schools run either 4 or 6 hours a day. Then the students leave. They might go on an activity in the afternoon.
Usually without a teacher.
Usually without a teacher, and then at night they have dinner or whatever without their friends, without a teacher. But this would be taking it, instead of 6 hours a day, we'd be doubling it to 12 hours a day, 12 hours plus.
They were only speaking English.
Yes, sir.
I have a granddaughter right now in Virginia who has it's a bilingual school. In the morning, everything is in Spanish. In the afternoon, everything is in English.
Wow.
And it's a public school.
Right.
In Arlington, Virginia. Public school.
Huh. And does she like working there?
She's not working. She's going to school.
She's going to school there.
She's 5.5 years old.
Wow. I taught bilingual education in Texas. And my bilingual education was a Spanish school, because they were all Spanish speakers, with parts of the lessons conducted in English.
Oh, so it was embedded in the...
And it was a miserable failure.
Because the kids just would stop listening.
Right,
when the English came
because
on.
things they were taught, mainly it was taught in Spanish, but we had these aspects where the problem was in Texas we had a lot of illegal immigrants.
She's coming back. She'll be here this weekend with my daughter. She was adopted when she was 2 months old in Guatemala.
Okay.
And my daughter met the mother,
Right.
etc. And she was Spanish, etc. And so she felt that she was obligated
I agree.
to do that for this child. And so she had a tutor before she went to school. And then she went to school with Nova, and she had a tutor in the afternoons. And now she enrolled her in this school in Arlington, Virginia, where she is now. And but I didn't realize that they were teaching all morning in Spanish and all afternoon in English.
I like that. That's true bilingual.
So that's the way she's being educated. But I haven't seen her since she started in September.
So do they switch? Say one morning they study in English, the other morning in Spanish, or do they switch the classes?
No.
If you're doing your math, you do it in English, or you do it in Spanish. If it's in the morning.
According to what I heard, I'll find out more now that she's coming home for 3 days. What I gather is that whatever subjects they take in the morning, they take it in Spanish. And in the afternoon, they take
Other activities.
They take those subjects continued in English.
So you might learn to count in Spanish, and then you're counting.
She has no trouble speaking in Spanish.
Right. But
she knows
someone next to her may be English predominantly and is picking it up.
I'm assuming she's predominantly English also, because when she was down here, the only Spanish she had was a tutorial and my daughter, who speaks her in Spanish. Because she happens to know Spanish.
Right.
But
Or you learn how to count in Spanish in the morning, then afternoon you're learning how to do
you apply it.
Groupings.
I said to her on the telephone something about "Oh, you're now 5 years old." She said, 5 1/4. So now I say 5 1/4. She says, "Grandpa, Poppy, 5 1/2."
This kid knows fractions.
She is one cute kid.